This is the story of how the cold chain keeps food safe as it moves from production to the store. This video explains how temperature-controlled systems work, why time and temperature both matter, and how an unseen chain protects food long before it reaches a refrigerator. The cold chain refers to the temperature-controlled portion of the food supply system, covering storage, transportation, and handling of perishable foods. From the moment food leaves a farm, processing plant, or manufacturing line, temperature becomes a constant constraint, and that constraint never disappears. Rather than operating as a single checkpoint, the cold chain functions as a continuous process. Every handoff, from warehouse to truck to distribution center, carries responsibility for keeping food within safe limits. Biology is the reason this system exists. The USDA defines the danger zone as temperatures between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and within that range, bacteria grow quickly. According to USDA guidance, bacterial populations can double in as little as 20 minutes, which means even short delays could increase risk. That biological reality shaped an entire infrastructure designed to slow growth rather than react after the fact. Temperature alone does not determine whether food remains safe. Duration matters just as much. USDA guidance sets clear limits, stating that perishable food should not be left unrefrigerated for more than 2 hours, and when surrounding temperatures rise above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, that window drops to 1 hour. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reinforces the same limits in its food safety guidance. These thresholds reflect how quickly bacteria respond once conditions allow growth. Food rarely stays still. Loading docks, staging areas, traffic delays, and scheduling issues all add exposure time, and that's when cold chain design shifts focus from perfection to control. Short exposures can be manageable, while longer ones at the same temperature are not. This is why cold chain systems track both time and temperature together, because one without the other gives an incomplete picture. Regulatory standards anchor the cold chain to specific benchmarks. FDA food code-based materials repeatedly reference 41 degrees Fahrenheit or 5 degrees Celsius as a key cold holding threshold. Many refrigerated foods must be cooled to 41 degrees or below and maintained at that level during storage and handling. That narrow margin separates slow bacterial growth from rapid multiplication. At 41 degrees, growth slows enough to reduce risk over time. At higher temperatures, that margin disappears quickly. These thresholds shape how refrigeration systems are built and how operations are managed. Door open times, loading procedures, and storage layouts all trace back to those numbers. The system is built around limits that reflect biology rather than convenience. Food safety systems exist because the consequences of failure are measurable. According to the CDC, foodborne illness affects 48 million people in the United States each year. From that total, 128,000 hospitalizations and 3,000 deaths occur annually, based on estimates updated in November 2025. The FDA summarizes this burden as affecting 1 in 6 Americans. Not every illness traces back to temperature control. Still, improper handling and temperature abuse increase risk across many categories of food. The cold chain reduces that risk at scale. It does not eliminate illness entirely, but it lowers the probability across millions of meals. Transportation represents one of the most fragile links in the cold chain. Food spends hours or days moving between facilities, often across long distances. Each transfer introduces exposure risk. Dock doors open, refrigeration units pause, and schedules slip. To address these vulnerabilities, the FDA established the Sanitary Transportation of Human and Animal Food Rule under the Food Safety Modernization Act. The final rule was published in the Federal Register on April 6, 2016. The rule targets practices that create food safety risks, including failure to refrigerate properly, poor vehicle sanitation, and inadequate protection during transit. Rather than prescribing one method, it sets expectations for outcomes. Responsibility spans the system. Shippers, motor and rail carriers, loaders, and receivers all fall within its scope. The goal is continuity, which means accountability follows the food from hand to hand. Cold chain oversight developed over time. An early step came in August 2005, when the Sanitary Food Transportation Act became law. That act laid groundwork for federal authority over food transportation safety. A much larger shift followed several years later. On January 4, 2011, the Food Safety Modernization Act was signed into law, changing food safety policy from reaction to prevention. Transportation safety became part of that preventive framework. The Sanitary Transportation Rule emerged from this shift. Compliance began in April 2017, with later deadlines for smaller businesses. Those dates marked when telling food companies to keep it cold became a regulated requirement. Refrigeration alone does not guarantee safety. Monitoring fills the gap between equipment and assurance. One tool used in cold chain systems is the time temperature indicator, often called a TTI. These devices or labels reflect cumulative temperature exposure rather than a single reading. Academic and extension sources describe TTIS as tools that show when a product's time temperature history has crossed a threshold, often through a visual change that cannot be reversed. That feature captures exposure that might otherwise go unnoticed. Unlike a thermometer snapshot, TTIS tell a story across the entire journey. They reveal breaks that occur during transfers or delays. Regulations do not require a specific monitoring technology. They require protection, leaving companies to decide how to meet that standard. If this kind of clear, system-focused explanation is useful, you can subscribe to Inside the Grocery System for more videos like this. And if you have questions or insights about food safety or storage, feel free to leave them in the comments. Cold chain safety depends on physical infrastructure. Temperature-controlled warehouses act as buffers between production and consumption. These facilities maintain consistent conditions while absorbing fluctuations in supply and demand. They allow food to pause without becoming unsafe. One example illustrates the scale involved. In a February 26, 2025 press release, Lineage Inc. reported operating more than 485 facilities across North America, Europe, and the Asia-Pacific region. That network represents approximately 86 million square feet and 3.1 billion cubic feet of temperature-controlled capacity. Those figures describe infrastructure, not edge cases. Cold storage has become a backbone of modern food systems, even though most consumers never see it. Investment activity highlights how central the cold chain has become. In July 2024, Reuters reported that Lineage raised $4.44 billion in its initial public offering. At the time, that offering was the largest IPO of 2024. Reuters also reported that the company operated 482 temperature-controlled warehouses and served more than 13,000 customers. These numbers point to scale rather than novelty. Capital flows toward systems that food distribution depends on. Cold storage is no longer peripheral. It sits at the center of modern supply chains. Even with infrastructure and rules in place, weak points remain. Loading and unloading present frequent challenges. During these moments, products wait, doors open, and refrigeration may be interrupted. Transfers between trucks and facilities create similar exposure. Because of this, many cold chain practices focus on reducing dwell time. Shorter exposure windows reduce risk even if temperatures rise briefly. The system manages movement rather than eliminating it. Design decisions concentrate on the moments when food is most exposed. Modern food safety regulation emphasizes prevention. The FDA's transportation rule aims to stop unsafe practices before they lead to contamination. This approach aligns with the broader intent of FSMA. Instead of responding to outbreaks, regulators focus on conditions that make them likely. Temperature abuse sits high on that list. Controlling it reduces risk across many food categories. Through sanitation standards, refrigeration requirements, and documentation, the cold chain functions as a preventive system layered across the supply chain. Cold chain operations varied widely. Different foods, climates, distances, and business models require different approaches. Regulatory guidance allows flexibility in how temperature control is achieved. What matters is that food remains protected. Industry best practice guides emphasize agreements between shippers and carriers on monitoring responsibilities and temperature expectations. Coordination fills gaps that rules alone cannot. Despite variation, the goal remains constant. Food must stay out of the danger zone long enough to reach consumers safely. For consumers, the cold chain is mostly invisible, yet its performance determines whether food remains safe by the time it reaches home. Failures. Earlier in the system may not show up until illness occurs. Public health agencies track patterns, but prevention depends on upstream controls. The cold chain operates quietly across thousands of miles and millions of handoffs. Its success rarely draws attention. Its failures do. Recent data reinforce the system's importance. The CDC continues to report 48 million illnesses, 128,000 hospitalizations, and 3,000 deaths each year. At the same time, industry investment continues to expand, as shown by large-scale cold storage growth and financial activity. These trends point in the same direction. Cold chain systems are becoming more central to food safety, not less. This video explained how the cold chain keeps food safe. From biological limits that define the danger zone, to legal frameworks established over decades, to warehouses and trucks that maintain temperature over time, the cold chain functions as a continuous system. Safety does not rely on a single safeguard. It depends on layered control working together. Most people never see these systems. Every safe meal depends on them. The cold chain is not a guarantee, but it remains one of the strongest defenses the food system has.